Welcome back. In this video, I would like to talk about the concept of negative space, or negative shape as some people call it. We will also go over how to complete your art homework for art class. So, starting with negative space. Negative space is the shape of space in between solid shapes that you see. For example, if you look at this very famous picture by Edward Degas, you'll see, first of all, perhaps the jockey, then maybe the horse, then maybe other objects in the background. But what your mind doesn't see right away is all of the negative spaces. Like, for example, this space between the jockey's arm and the horse. This space, which I have pointed to right here, will show you that there is almost a puzzle piece going on inside of this composition. Not only are we looking at the positive shapes, but more importantly, we're also seeing the negative shapes inside of the picture. These puzzle pieces, if you will, if they're missing or if they happen to be the wrong shape and they don't fit together, the whole picture will not work out and give a clear vision to the viewer of what you're actually drawing. In art class, I like to explain this concept to children with the idea of glass. If you were to take a window pane like this and take the actual section of glass out and remove it, it would be a certain shape. In this sense, a rectangle, and you could define that shape based on the pane or the piece of glass that is inside the boundaries of the wooden shape. Okay, so obviously these shapes aren't always going to be rectangles or squares. They might be something completely different. One thing that will help us in finding these shapes is cropping. In art class, you're going to use a viewfinder. Here's one example of a viewfinder. It's got this rectangular or square shape here, and the artist is holding it to block off all of these little spiny vines coming out from the center of this aloe plant. If you look though, what the artist has done is been able to make some negative shapes here between the frame of the viewfinder and the leaves of this plant. So you'll see that not only can you arrange your composition, but you can also create negative spaces with your viewfinder. Now, you want to use your viewfinder to create clear definitions between your negative shapes in this particular assignment. Typically, viewfinders are used to create a composition. For example, in this landscape, there's so much information. The artist here wants to, of course, outline the mountain peak here in the background and this valley in the front. But if you get all this other information, it gets a little complicated. Likewise, if we were to take this picture of Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling, we could arrange this so that maybe if we're looking at it, all we see is Adam's head and his arm and the other hand. Maybe it leaves something to be talked about. Whose hand is that? What's going on? If somebody doesn't know that work. Whereas we can then change it and create different negative shapes within the background of his head or the background of his arm, or if we move this over and we include, you know, maybe more of just the hands, it creates an entirely different composition. Okay, that being said, today in your homework, you're going to be creating a drawing of negative shape and negative space, and you'll need to use a cropping tool to crop the edges of your boundary. Now, we are going to be drawing a chair, and in my demonstration that I'm just about to show you, I draw this chair, and when I'm using my cropping tool in the lesson, I'm going to be using it and cropping about here. I actually crop so that this edge of the chair is in the picture, and I'm looking at these negative spaces, like this negative space in the back of the backrest, this negative space here underneath the seat of the chair, and this negative space over here in between the front, the two legs of the chair. So keep in mind this picture here while we're watching the demonstration. Now, during this demonstration, I have the piece of paper sitting in front of us, and first of all, you're going to make sure that you put your name on it, all right? And you're going to put your teacher's name on it. In this section, you'll draw a chair, and in this section, you'll draw another object. Please focus on just the negative shapes. Here's my window example of drawing just the glass, and if we're looking at this chair here, you'll see I have been drawing just those pieces. At home, you're going to take a rectangle or square of paper and cut the two leg sections out of it, so you have two capital L's. Those two capital L's will form as your viewfinder at home, and you can arrange these in whatever situation you need to create the cropping around the edges of your chair to create that negative space, whether you're doing a chair or any other object. Okay? Now, as you do this, make sure that you crop right up to the edge of the chair or other object to create those negative spaces in between, such as this rectangular piece that I've done right there. So when you do get done with that, make sure that you've got all the edges cropped up. You might not want to crop over the edge of your chair, but you want to make nice negative spaces in and around your chair. Okay? That being said, as I start drawing here, I turn my body towards my chair and I use my cropping tool. Now, as I start this, look how I begin. I'm looking now at the edge of the chair, and obviously I'm doing a screencast now, so I'm not physically drawing at the moment. But you want to look carefully as you're drawing, like I am in the video, and I'm looking carefully at which angles my chair is going. Then I'm looking more particularly at this negative space out here, not the actual seat of the chair. Now I'm looking, like that picture I showed you before, I'm looking at the little shape inside of the area between the front leg and this other leg that's right here. I'm not drawing that leg, but I'm drawing the shape of the space in between. I know it's very hard to conceive of the first time you do this, but that's really what you need to look at. Now, right now, this line here is the bottom of the seat of the chair, and this line here is the edge of the shape that's going to be underneath. And as you see, I'm outlining those empty shapes rather than outlining the actual pieces of the chair. Now, this looks much different than a normal drawing because of the way that the overlapping is going. If you look at the way these two legs here now are overlapping, they're not even overlapping. I haven't even drawn in the way that this leg might overlap this bar underneath because I'm only drawing the negative shapes. I'm not thinking about overlapping artistically. I'm only thinking about seeing those negative shapes. Okay? Now, as you get done with this drawing, it should be cropped right up to the edge of your paper, and you should have mostly geometric shapes in your chair that make sense based on the picture and the way that you have cropped things out. Okay? Now, depending on how you finish your chair and how you put in those negative spaces and shapes, you're going to find another object somewhere around your house. Maybe it's a different thing, a bookshelf. Maybe it's the wire grate that is outside. Maybe it's a pair of scissors. Maybe it's something with shapes and spaces in it that you can crop. Okay? And that is how you finish your negative space and cropping assignment for your art homework.